Onsite with the SI ecosystem, what to expect, and what are the next steps. This video contains 4 sections: Troy, Helen of Troy, mesh routers, and finally shades. Troy is the IP gateway and commissioning tool that you use for the SI ecosystem. Troy does not need an intranet connection. However, depending on your control requirements, you'll probably want access from a local area network Ethernet connection, either via a PoE switch or connected to the included PoE injector. Troy can be mounted inside like a 19-inch standard EIA rack, can be ganged with other devices. It does come with one long rack ear if it's by itself. It can fit in a half rack. It can also fit inside many of the standard structured wire enclosures, including the SI Joplin. Included with Troy are all these rack ears and DIN rail brackets. On the back of Troy, you will find the MAC address and also a QR code, which will take you to our website with the latest versions of manuals, programming manuals, and firmware. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and scan the QR code, go to our website, download the Troy programming guide. For the next step, we're going to review pages 5 and 6, which give you multiple methods of identifying the Troy address. By default, Troy DHCP is on, and in the event you have no DHCP, then the default IP address will be 169.254.169.254. So you're going to move your phone, tablet, PC to this unroutable logical segment of the network, and you're going to put on that device a temporary IP address of 169.254.169.200 or similar logical address within that segment. Make sure to use a subnet of 255.255.00, 16-bit subnet. Once you have your address in this segment, press and release the button on the front of Troy with a thin tool or paper clip that's where it says reset, and wait till the status LED starts flashing. Now open your browser on that device and type in 169.254.169.254, and you'll be served up the Troy configuration GUI. Okay, now that you're connected to Troy via your browser, let's review the Troy menu hierarchy. You have 5 menus in Troy, starting with the dashboard, then the integration table, integration settings, system settings, and reports and files. Throughout this video, we're going to highlight several features and functions that you'll be using and which menu they're in. Helen is a Zigbee 3.0 coordinator, which creates the wireless mesh network. Find a suitable location to mount your Helen. This location has 3 main requirements. First, it should be located as close to the center of all of your Zigbee shades as possible. Second, you will need an unshielded twisted pair UTP cable to connect your Helen to the Troy. If you're making your own cable, we recommend terminating the RJ45s in a 568B termination. And the best practice would be to run a sweep and bandwidth test of the cable to ensure no problems with the cable. Finally, the cable length cannot exceed more than 100 meters. Third, you should use a plastic or ceramic installation bracket or wall box. It is possible to install Helen in a metal installation bracket, such as a mud ring or P-ring, but do not install Helen inside a metal wall box. Helen also has 2 DIN rail slots on each side in case a wall box is not available at your desired installation location. Connect the cable from Helen to the port on Troy marked Helen port. SI pre-configures the Zigbee coordinator Helen and the IP gateway Troy at the factory. So once you've made this connection, you should see the 3 LEDs on Helen light up and stay solid. If the LEDs are not on, or are on but are flashing on and off, ensure the Helen you have connected is the pre-programmed coordinator. When SI pre-programs the coordinator, we place a Helen of Troy label on the face of the Helen. Other Helens that may be on this project will have a blank face. You may also see a bright pink label on the Helen box, which indicates this is the coordinator. If you do not find any Helen with the front label applied, then one at a time, connect any other Helens that you have in this project into the Troy Helen port until you find a Helen that the LEDs will stay on. In the rare event you cannot locate the pre-configured Helen, then we have a video for starting a Zigbee network with Helen from scratch, and you'll want to switch to that video to continue your installation. The Zigbee wireless mesh network can be expanded or the range extended by using mesh routers. The SI ecosystem supports many mesh routers, including low voltage routers like Helen and TDMI, and AC powered mesh routers like smart plugs, smart outlets, smart light switches, as well as AC or DC low voltage powered Zigbee endpoint nodes with mesh routing, such as the low voltage Zigbee motors. In general, you need at least one mesh router in every room with lithium Zigbee shades, and you will also need at least one mesh router for every 16 lithium shades. And you will also need a mesh router for every 10 meters in distance you are from the Zigbee coordinator. Some building construction materials and furnishings can also impede or impact the performance of the wireless mesh. The SI ecosystem provides visibility and tools to adjust the wireless mesh and ensure it's working 100% no matter what kind of construction your project is being installed. Also, it is a best practice to have a few extra mesh routers, such as a Helen or smart plug, in your toolbox or on your truck in case they are needed to keep the wireless mesh working in tip-top shape. First, unpack and place all your mesh routers, with the exception of smart outlets and light switches, next to your Helen. If you're using smart outlets or light switches, you will need to have a licensed electrician install them in the desired locations, and you will need to have access to the power circuit for these kind of routers so that you can remove and restore power to them in our next steps to add them to the network. Next, go back to your Troy browser and click on the integration table from the top main menu. Review the list of devices. You should see a list of all the shades in your project, and you may see some mesh routers on the list. Typically, the routers are not added during the shade production, so the next step is to click on the device table button. In this table, find the Open Helen Network to add new devices and click on it. For Helen devices that you want to use as mesh routers, just connect any power source. The LEDs will start flashing on and off. Now hold the pairing button for approximately 3 to 6 seconds. And within a few seconds, you will see the router populate at the top of the list of devices in the Troy GUI, and the whole line will be yellow. For smart plugs, many need to have the button held while plugging into an outlet to enter the Zigbee discovery mode. For smart outlets and light switches, disconnect the power and reconnect the power, and they will also enter the Zigbee discovery mode. Once you see the device at the top of the device table in the Troy GUI, you can add a label, and you can also test the device for outlets and plugs. This generally means it will switch the outlet on and off. The button will change from gray to yellow, and the text inside the button will now read Close Helen Network. Now, go through each mesh router and power it up. Some routers have additional steps to get them into the Zigbee discovery mode. Please follow the device instructions to enter the Zigbee discover mode for that device. Many Zigbee routers, which have never been attached to a Zigbee mesh network, will boot up in a Zigbee discovery mode automatically. The name of the router is usually associated with the location of where the router is within the project. Sometimes the routers are used inside of events with shades, such as you have a lamp or a fan plugged into a smart plug, And in that case, sometimes the label for those routers will be that actual device, such as living room lamp or master bathroom fan. Once you have confirmed this is the correct router and added your label, click on the Accept Edit buttons just above the table, and the new device will change from yellow to gray. Do this step for each router, and once you have all routers discovered in the device table, click on the Close Helen Network, the yellow button, and this button will turn back to gray and the text will turn back to Open Helen Network inside the button. Click the back button just above the device integration table, which will move back to the aggregate integration page. Notice a yellow box just above the device table says table is not committed. You must click on the button just above that yellow box labeled Commit Integration Table. Now, depending on how many devices you just added, this can take a couple seconds, up to about 10 seconds on a very large project. When you're done, it will change from a yellow box to a green box. Next, you should now move all of these routers to their permanent installation locations. Once all the mesh routers are installed, let's take a look at the link quality of these routers. We do this by clicking on the dashboard menu button in the Troy UI. Scroll down to the bottom and click on Show Helen Diagnostics. Next, click on the Start Helen Diagnostic button to begin scanning the Zigbee network. Depending on the number of devices and the noise floor within your project, this can take from 30 seconds to even 1 or 2 minutes to complete a full scan. The action item here is to ensure that all routers have a minimum of 50 SILQ, which is the link quality. For shades, we want to see a minimum of 80s or higher, but routers have additional mesh routing duties which can drag them lower. As long as all your routers are above 50, you're good to go. If a router is under 50 link quality, then look in the table to see what device this router is connected to. It'll be next to the link quality to the left under parent. Any router that has a link quality value below 50, you're going to need to relocate. Or if the router cannot be relocated, then you're going to need to add another router in between the router and its parent. The parent list next to the link quality shows the ID of Zigbee node it's connected to. Once you've added the new router, you need to rescan the network and just make sure that the router in question has gone above 50. If the network has such a high noise floor, then it may take some time, and once the shades have been installed, you may want to consider moving the whole Zigbee mesh to a different channel. And we've created a video on moving the Zigbee mesh to a new channel to help you with this feature. Now that the Troy, Helen, and all the mesh routers have been installed, it is time to install the shades, unpack, and install all shades on the project. Since SI pre-configures the Zigbee shades, they already should be in the device table of Troy. However, in the rare event that a shade was not added or committed to the Troy device table, the SI production team will place a large pink sticker on the box or on the shade. The shade was already paired with Helen, but was not committed to the device in the Troy table. Once all the shades have been installed, confirm all the shades in your project are in the Troy device table and confirm that each shade is correctly labeled using the test button for each device. If any device, any shade is not in the list or the pink label is found on the shade, click on the Integration Table menu button to bring you to the Aggregate Integration Table. Click on the Device Table button to bring you to the Device Integration Table. This time, you're going to click on the button at the top of the device list called Start Discovery of Existing Devices. This button will turn yellow and the text will change to Stop Helen Discovery. Any of the shades that were added to Helen will populate in the table below and the whole line will turn yellow. Once it's done, the button that was yellow will turn back gray and it will again say start discovery existing devices. You can now click on the test button to confirm which shades you're controlling, and the label should already be filled in. However, if it's not, you can now click on the label and add it. Once complete with adding devices, you can click the accept edits just above the table, and now click the back button just above the device integration table text to go back to the aggregate integration table, and click on the commit integration table. Wait for the table is committed box to turn green. If you have a shade that is not in the device table and you have already attempted to discover existing Helen devices, then you can add the device using the Open Helen Network to add new devices button until it turns yellow, and leave this open. Go to your shade and first attach the magnetic charger, which should take the shade out of the delivery mode and put it into the Discover Zigbee mode. Check the Troy UI to see if this green populated at the top of the device list, and the whole line will be yellow. After a minute, if the shade has not populated, then you'll need to gain access to the Motorhead button and hold the button down for one jog. The LED inside the cassette will start flashing yellow. And again, check the Troy UI to see if the screen populated at the top of the device list, where it will show a yellow screen added. After a minute, if the shade has still not populated, then you will need to gain access to the Motorhead again. Hold the button down for 2 jogs. Again, check the Troy UI to see if the screen populated at the top of the list, and the line will be yellow. And if you are still not able to see the motor in the device list, you may need to remove the shade and bring the shade to within 10 meters of the coordinator. Go back and attempt the same steps above and see if you're still able to get the motor to show up in the Troy UI. If you are not able to do all of these methods, you may need to add another temporary router and move the shade closer to the coordinator. And if you're still not able to discover the shades, then we will need to contact our support team and go through some additional steps. Okay, now that all the shades are installed and they're in the Troy list, we're going to go back to the dashboard. We're going to click on Show Helen. We're going to click on Start Helen Diagnostics. We're going to look through the table, and what we want is no shade on this project to have a link quality of less than 80. If there's any shades with less than 80, then we're going to either have to move one or more of the mesh routers or add an additional mesh router. All right, so your system is up and running. You have all of the shades above 80 link quality. You have all of your routers above 50 link quality. The system is working well. You can hit the test and try everything. The next steps now are additional videos that we have for adding a bond to use the SI app, or if you want to add like a remote or a keypad or several other things. So take a look at the additional videos we have in this series.
Innovative shades and projection screens, making life beautiful, convenient, and fun. Contact our sales team or our free SI design services to get started.